Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing YouTube channel for another live at lunch. Of course, every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time, we go live on the channel. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Make sure you do that so you can engage in our live chat on YouTube. And also, we appreciate all the golfers that have already submitted questions today for our special guest through the Instagram channel, or the Instagram page, excuse me. But yeah, our special guest today, I'm going to get right to it because you're eager to talk to him, of course. Kevin Kraft is joining us, Master Club Fitter. If you follow the YouTube channel, you're very familiar with Kevin. He's joining us right now from the tour van at the Columbia store. Kevin, I want you to say hi to the people, and I want you to tell the people what you've been up to. A lot of golf play or not so much? How are things hanging with you?
Well, hello, people. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of club fitting. That's pretty much it lately. I've got 4 rounds of golf in this year. That's it. So a little less than a month before tournaments start. So I've got to get on my horse and get after it a little bit.
Yeah, that's obviously something we look forward to, is just seeing how the competition goes for you. I know we actually have a segment that we filmed with you a ways back. What's in the bag segment that when you were back here in Twin Cities that we still haven't actually posted yet. And so I'm a little, we're not going to go through the whole what's in the bag right now. I'm just hoping things haven't changed since then. Can you give me a yes or no as if things have changed since then? That's all I want.
Yeah, they've changed.
Okay. Well, we'll maybe make a note there and say, hey, things may have changed in the time being, but that's okay. Okay, so we've got several questions for those watching right now on YouTube. We post basically every week leading up to our live at lunch. We post an Instagram story inviting people to kind of submit their thoughts, submit their questions. So follow us on Instagram for that. We've got several questions that we got to get to Kevin for. This is purely a Q&A. So we're going to start with some of these questions that were submitted. We got some really good ones, by the way. We got some really insightful questions being asked by our viewers, by our listeners. So we're going to start right away with a category and with a new product that was just out there launched. This is from everyday_Hesse on Instagram. Is the Elite Mini Driver forgiving? Could a mid to high handicap play this? Kevin, how much experimenting, if any, have you done with that yet? And what do you think about the Elite Mini Driver?
Well, the timing is actually just exemplary because I just hit it this morning.
Perfect.
We just got it in I was off yesterday. We got it in Tuesday. It was packed with fittings. Didn't have a chance to even get it really in my hands. So this morning I came in and I hit the 280 Titleist and the Elite Mini Driver. So, yeah, the Elite Mini Driver is forgiving. Amongst the minis, it's probably the one that has the biggest footprint. It looks like a mini driver rather than an oversized 3-wood.
Mm-hmm.
So I hit it quite a bit. I actually hit the 11.5 degree higher than I hit the 280 from Titleist at 12.75 degrees. So I was really impressed with it. It was good. It's big. It's definitely a bit bigger than I was expecting it to be. And that could either work positively or negatively. It wasn't maybe quite as easy to hit off the deck if you were trying to use it as a 3-wood, but off the tee, shorter shaft, definitely going to be easier to work with and definitely forgiving.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, if you are a player that maybe struggles off the tee, the length of a driver shaft is just not for you, something along those lines. That's where the Elite Mini Driver will be a big benefit, which again, that could be applicable for any handicap in that particular case. Whereas the GT280 does seem to be more to your point of a larger fairway wood. So if your whole point of a mini driver is for the versatility of tee and turf shots, then I think that might be where more so where I would lean for you. Whereas if you're looking for an off the tee club primarily, the Elite Mini Driver might be the better option of the two. But it's certainly a category that seems to be taking off for sure.
If you had told me 3 years ago that in 2025 mini drivers and 7 and 9 woods would be the biggest things in golf, I would have told you were nuts. But here we are.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how stuff like that? I mean, I think because what TaylorMade had, oh gosh, it was the 300 Club, right? It was, I think, mini 300 or something it was like 3 or 4 years ago. They kind of relaunched it, limited, right? And then of course they had the burner mini of 2023 that I believe was in your bag at least for some time. I know you've been toying with it. And it was kind of off and on. Still is. Okay, there you go. So. It's taken off. I think you just see a lot of tour players that have just adopted the idea, and then that we've seen that it's the same thing as going on with the lab putters right now, where you see that tour adoption and it kind of trickles down to the rest of the industry. So it's been cool. Yeah. It's been cool to see that for sure. I got a really good one here. This is a whole, we could probably talk an entire episode on this particular topic, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this one. This is from this is T-Bird's dad on Instagram. Says, cool. More influence / impact on driver performance and consistency, the club head or the shaft?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Both are extremely important. I would probably give a little bit, just a slight bit of nod to the head. But the shaft is also then what we're powering it with. So, if you're a high launch, high spin guy and you grab a high launch, high spin shaft, it's going to double down on the thing that you already struggle with. So in terms of consistency, we would first want to pick a head, and then we want to make sure that we power that head with the shaft that works the best. So it really is a tandem. Mm-hmm. I don't think if you're looking for ultimate consistency, I think you've got to manage both those things to be able to get there. I don't think you could put me in the same head that I'm in right now with a shaft that completely doesn't fit my profile and have the results be as good as they are, nor do I think you could put me in one of the other heads and with the shaft that I'm in now and get the same results that I'm in currently.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, the question's definitely a little tough. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
It could go either way, and it could be very different for individual people, right? Some people could rely more on a head, some people could rely more on a shaft. So I would say when you go to get fit, you're going to pick a head first. And then once you've got that head, then let's go through and get that shaft dialed in to that last degree, get you the most consistency we can get.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you kind of rounded it out with that point and kind of how the second swing fitting process works, because we actually got a comment from AJ on YouTube just now who had asked, fit to shaft or fit to head first for driver specific, or is it independent of each other, which I don't think there's any way, in a sense, it could be completely independent unless you were testing all of the different combinations independently, which would take hours and hours and hours, right? So there's that's kind of the idea as far as that goes. I wanted to stick with kind of the long game stuff here, and then looking at as it pertains specifically to this is someone's asking about driver fitting. This is Steve Canterbury Instagram message here. Said it's early in the season and the driver swing's not dialed in. Is now the wrong time to get fitted? So that's kind of just a general fitting question on when to get fit, I guess, as of course us up here in Minnesota, but I think all the way around the country where you're at too. There's obviously seasons and times where golf is maybe not played very much. So can we talk to that element and maybe the fitting there?
It can depend on just how bad things are.
Yeah.
Somebody coming in has not touched a club since, say, October, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to come in and they're going to get a fitting. It can be challenging, right? When you're working with an established player, you want to be able to, work to their strengths. And if they're not in any kind of form where they're just not hitting shots that they normally hit, it's harder to put somebody into something that's going to definitely be really, really good. If you get a new player and they haven't played much, we can always, work towards static measurements and, put our, Swami caps on and kind of look out into the future and kind of see what we're going to expect is going to happen. And then we can always, if we need to, we can always make adjustments after the
Mm-hmm.
fact. But I would say if you're able to practice a little bit and you can strike the ball reasonably solidly, you don't have to be in your best form to be able to get fit at all. And I don't think
Yeah.
there's any fitter with our company that's going to say, oh, no, you can't come in and get fit unless you're in prime form.
Right. I think that's also why there's follow-up fittings available too. I mean, there's,
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
think we totally understand that there's also this, when you're on a golf course, you can hit the ball off of grass. You might swing differently, or you might have a certain different confidence level outside versus inside that I think we've definitely noticed and understood it is the case for some golfers. So being able to play equipment outside, see what you might see on feedback there, and come in and do a follow-up fitting. That's all part of the process for us. So, all right,
100%.
we are getting a ton of chat questions on YouTube right now, so I can already tell
Cool.
that we're not going to get to everything that was submitted on Instagram. We're not going to probably not going to get to everything that was submitted on YouTube, but I'm going to try here with the 45 minutes to an hour that we're allocating for this. So
I'll
actually,
try to
we
keep
have
my
about
answers
yeah.
quick and concise. Yeah.
I mean, hey, we'll do what we can, right? So we've got, let's see, here's a good one. This is from Andrew on YouTube here with a very specific one. He's playing Ventus TR Blue 7X in an AI Smoke Triple Diamond. He wants to play something lighter, but he doesn't like the 6X of the TR Blue. Any ideas for shafts to try for Andrew?
Well, from a launch perspective, I'm trying to think if Ventus does a 5X in the blue. I know we don't have it for demo here, but they do a 5 series. I'm just not sure if they do it in an X. If they don't do it in an X, you could definitely have it tipped. That one's a little tough. You can go autoflex.
There you go. I know you like an autoflex.
Fantastic. I don't mind the feel of the TR Blue either, which you'd think that TR Blue and autoflex would not necessarily play nice together, but the feels aren't so. It's not like a black. Let's put it that way. I would actually have to probably look something up to find out exactly where I could be in maybe in a graphite design or what exactly the numbers are in the Ventus line. We don't have any 5Xs here. I know that. So doesn't mean they don't exist though. So
yeah, I mean, even like and in terms of launch too, there's obviously Ventus, red is a higher launching option there. So I guess it would depend on too, like he's probably, I would imagine, in sort of a tweener there where like he kind of likes some of the properties of the blue, but maybe doesn't want to launch it too high if he goes lighter type of thing. So I'm sure that's part of the conversation.
Like I was thinking Denali red because that one's available in a 5X, but playability wise, it's definitely a bit different from the TR Blue.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a tricky one. Either way, it's going to take a little bit of testing and getting with the fitter and kind of trying to dial that in specifically. So,
absolutely.
Let's see. We've got some more coming in
here.
Here's a good one here from E Pantangdo. I'm mispronouncing that. I apologize. I have a GT1 driver with a 43.5-inch length as a mini driver in the bag. So kind of a Frankenstein mini driver build here, which is kind of interesting. And a QI35 LS 9-degree head as a driver. Thoughts on testing one of the new mini drivers? Looks like probably to replace the GT1 or as something instead of that GT1 kind of Frankenstein build there. Mentions GT280 or Callaway Elite, etc.
Well, given the size of the GT1, he's probably going to feel pretty at home with the Elite being sort of the biggest head of the three, assuming TaylorMade Titleist and Callaway. The
Yeah.
Titleist is going to be the smallest looking of the group. And it also kind of depends on what his intentions are. If he's going to just play it as a shorter off the tee club, that Elite's going to be fantastic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There might be rumblings that TaylorMade's going to have another one coming.
Yeah, could
So,
be. We can't confirm or deny on this program.
No, we can't. And all I was told was that they had lots of heads left from the current generation. So that's all I know at this point.
Okay.
So, but even still, you throw that head in there, it's good, it's fast. So
Yep.
there's lots of options there. But size wise, anyway, for sure, the Elite's going to be kind of the most similar to that GT1.
Right, and for this player, I think there's the added benefit here too is replacing that GT1 with something that if you wanted, you could play off the deck. Versus the GT1 is just it's huge as a footprint too to look down at. Yeah,
the Mini's definitely going to be easier to hit off the deck.
Yeah, for sure.
No matter what.
So this is a fun one here on grips from Robert Allen in the chat. So I think there's I don't want to say misconception, but I also would just, as a general question, does grip size affect a bias in trajectory? But Robert says, if smaller grips promote a draw bias and larger grips promote a fade bias, do you have jumbo max during a fitting, or is it always standard size? And would this be awkward for someone with larger hands who, presumably, I think he's referring to if someone has larger hands and is already playing large grips, than to go into fitting with a standard size grip?
Yeah, so we don't have the Jumbo Max in our grip matrix. We are set up mostly to start doing fittings with the player's size grip. It's maybe not exactly ready to launch, but we have the capability, and it's something that I firmly believe we should do, because it is different when you've got somebody that comes in with jumbo grips or mid-size grips and you put these standard size as we have on all of our stuff. It feels like a toothpick, if you're not used to that kind of thing. I play a variable set where my grips run from mid-size plus 2 wraps all the way down to standard once I get into the driver. So I'm kind of used to the variance there. But if you got somebody that's carrying just jumbo grips across the board, the feeling is maybe not ideal. So it's something that I still think we need to get into doing.
Yeah. It's certainly a dynamic of the fitting that it's not. It's definitely not forgotten or dismissed that second swing, but I think in terms of the components, right, it's tough to, have all these different grip options available on a particular club to kind of test within the bay, right? The different sizes, the components required to have that happen. So there's some logistics that it's definitely not impossible, but I think some logistics to kind of help with that regard.
Yeah.
So here's a good one from Abdullah, and we'll get back to some of the ones via Instagram. We just have so many on YouTube right now that are some good ones to answer. Abdullah asks on YouTube, Kevin, what do you think about Callaway, a Max D at 8 degrees with a Tensai white for a bomber driver setup, and then follows it up with, or what would you say is the best setup for high launch, low spin that has been giving you success in the fitting bays?
Well, that certainly sounds like a good setup for a bomber, because Tensei White's going to be low spin, and as long as you're getting good launch characteristics off of that Max D, should be pretty darn good. The fast ones this year, I still think probably Titleist has the fastest face out there right now.
Okay.
Callaway, Cobra, TaylorMade, and Ping are all nipping at the heels. I don't think anybody's really lagging behind, but when it comes to producing high smash factors, it's hard to beat Titleist these days. It really is.
Yeah, the GT drivers, it's almost like, they released the drivers, during the summer. They were last, I think it was August, right? So in a
Yeah.
way, it's sometimes easy to forget about the Titleist drivers, but you step into a second swing fitting bay and see how they're performing, and then you quickly stop forgetting about them because of that.
Yeah.
So I think
The
that's
thing
one
is,
thing. I
though,
know you've been talking about those too forever. Like they don't go away, I guess, right? With all these new drivers coming
no,
out.
no, they don't. And the thing is, everybody's going to have a different experience. So, you know, ping is usually where I go for higher launch, right? I've been doing this a long time. Ping in general just produces a really good launching golf club, but it's not going to win every battle, right? That's why we have all these different options and we go through these fittings, because we got to find really what works best for you. So whether that's a Callaway, a TaylorMade, a Cobra, a Ping, whatever it is, we're going to make sure that we find what is best for you, and then match it with a shaft that works.
Yeah.
So if, Abdullah, if you're hitting bombs with that, bomb away, man. That sounds awesome. It sounds like a good setup.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's already kind of locked in. I mean, you don't see a lot of Max D's with a Tensei White probably, but it sounds like something that obviously, that high launch, low spin. If you're hitting upward attack angle with an 8-degree head, you're probably achieving that right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
A little bit of draw bias is great for a lot of people.
yeah, exactly. Now this is a fun one. This is. We got just a quick chat from Herwin here. Says, Kevin, you fit me at Redtail in Beaverton. Still the best fitting I've ever had,
Oh, my
he
goodness.
says. So that is
Thank
a throwback,
you.
I know,
Thank
for
you
your
very
career.
It certainly is. That's awesome. Thank you.
Steven says, what is the best way to approach a driver fitting when strictly shopping for a used driver? So kind of a way to maybe we can illustrate what it's like at Second Swing to get fit for something used rather than in the tour van for the new stuff. I mean, these used fittings can take place in the tour van, but I guess
Sure.
what the process is like, and then obviously that day, in most cases, you walk out of the store with that driver.
Yeah. So, I mean, real quick, it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to have you come in. We're going to talk about what's going on with your driver, why you're there, what you want to have happen with a new driver that yours isn't doing for you, or what you want something new to not do that yours is doing for you. We're going to have you hit some shots with it, get a baseline, see what those numbers are, talk about what is working, what isn't working. And then we'll discuss, what models you're interested in, if you have any brands that you particularly do or don't want to hit. And then we'll use that data to pick some shafts that we have in stock in those heads. And we'll try 2, 3, 4 different heads. And if we have a couple different shaft options, if something's not, perfectly dialed in, we might do a quick shaft swap and see if we can get, the answers that we're looking for. So
Yeah.
It's not terribly dissimilar from our tour van fitting, except we're not throwing, 3 or 4 different shafts in the head we pick. We're just working within what we have.
Yeah, I think it's really the big difference is the kind of the in stock inventory that you might run over to the the wall of clubs, or the drawer, the rocket launchers we call them, of drivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just pick from there. Or the other thing too that I know has happened before is say this person's testing say used TSR2, right? Steven's in a fitting, and right now we're locked into TSR2 drivers. You've tried 3 or 4 different shafts of what's in stock there at the Columbia store, but maybe the best fit is actually one that we have stock at the Dallas store, right? Well, maybe you go online quick, order it, and have it shipped to the Columbia store quick, and in a few days, that's the one that ends up going in Steven's bag. So there's that option too. So that's the kind of the benefit of having the used selection that we do have, is that there's all these options, almost even more sometimes than the Fitting Matrix offers, just because of the abundance of used clubs over the last several years. And then of course your budget, what you're looking for. So it's a great question. I think it's important to touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, we want everybody to be able to get fit, whether you're buying brand new equipment or pre-owned equipment. That's exactly what we want. So, just because you don't want to spend the money on brand new equipment, or don't feel like you need brand new equipment, does not mean you cannot find something that is going to be absolutely fantastic for you and be fit for it.
Right. Yeah. And again, with I mean, with our selection of models, like we'll probably have. I mean, how many different shaft models do you think we have in, say, TSR2s in our inventory or Cobra Dark Speeds in our inventory? Right, there's so many, so you could go through the whole
So
fitting,
yeah,
the whole shaft
there's a
options, right?
decent number. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
All right, so now I'll kind of go back to the ones we have on Instagram. I wanted to touch on this one here because I think it's relevant for a lot of people that are watching now, or obviously we'll watch once this thing is uploaded. But it's funny. The first sentence of the question is just fixing a slice, fixing a slice. So
Okay.
higher loft angle, extra, and then also ask the question, extra stiff or stiff shaft. So I think basically to kind of summarize that question is the best way to fix a slice. Is it with adding some loft? Is it maybe going stiffer on the shaft? What are the ways that you have helped golfers fix a slice?
So the first thing to do is identify the issue, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to come down to face angle. I mean, face angle is the biggest challenge in golf, and I see it all day, every day. I see it all day on the range when I'm hitting golf balls, right? So trying to figure out how we get that club head in the right position, whatever your golf swing is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look and see what your path is, right? And if you're swinging outside to in, okay, that's going to be the path that's typically going to turn a ball left to right for a right-handed golfer, right to left for a left-handed golfer. And then we got to see where your face angle is, right? So once we've identified that, we might change loft. We might go up. A more lofted golf club is actually easier to square up than a less lofted club. 2 years ago, I was in a 5.5 degree driver head, and now I'm in an 8 degree driver head. It's a whole lot easier to hit an 8 degree driver head. We can use the tech in a lot of these heads, whether it's the ability to close a club face, like on a Titleist, or using something like a Ping SFT and throwing some weight in the heel to help try to square the club face up. The thing is, laws of physics still apply. So no matter what I do to a golf club, if you come from the outside and have an open club face, the ball's still going to slice.
Yeah.
But, we'll throw everything we can at it to try to make the golf club do the best it can with the golf swing that it's presented, right?
Right.
And then, quite frankly, most of our fitters have a pretty good idea of what goes on with the golf swing. We'll try to help you out there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I struggled with this for a long time, which was when I was maybe in high school and into college. I just simply couldn't draw the ball, and so, but I never accepted of just playing a fade. I was working so hard on just hitting a draw, trying to turn over the hands, that whole swinging into out, right? I just couldn't do it. But I think when it comes to a fitting, there's a 40-yard slice. People have those all the time. It's not uncommon. But if you can trim that down to even 20 yards, right, it becomes a big fade. And playing a fade is something you see tour pros do all the time. You watch John Rahm play on the weekends and majors, or you watch, I'm just trying to think of guys that, consistently play that big fade. Tony Finau's another. They're going to hit big power fades all day long off the tee, and they're okay with it because they control it, they hit it accurately. So that's kind of just a reminder I have. It's for myself, knowing that I was this golfer that struggled with that. But playing a fade or playing a consistent draw, and if that's the only shot you have on a lot of golf courses, that's probably fine. It really is. So then fitting and getting yourself dialed in can help you play your stock shot better.
So club path only dictates the shape the shot's going to take to get to its target. It does not dictate whether it can get to its target or not. Right. Yep. So, if you've got somebody swinging 12 degrees outside to in, or inside out for that matter, that's high. That's hard to control. If we can change a path to, say, half that, then things get a lot easier. So you're right. There's varying degrees of any of this. If you have a very consistent path, that's an asset, and we can absolutely work with that. We might talk about trying to make some changes, but ultimately, if you swing the same way every time, it's a matter of getting the face in the right angle and, getting then a club that's built to work with what you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, Robert is asking about, how hard is it not to give a lesson during a fitting? But I think in some ways, with the information that TrackMan and these launch monitors provide, you're mentioning it right there. I mean, club path and kind of that visualization of the number for a lot of golfers, saying, okay, I come 12 degrees outside to in. Let's try to work on that. I mean, even seeing that number and kind of quantifying it can just be a mini lesson in itself of what the swing is doing. So that can be a big help
So
right there.
it can be, it definitely can be hard not to get into teaching mode in a fitting, because you want to help this person, right? We're all in the same boat here, right? We're all trying to do is just play better golf and have more fun. So,
Yep.
I want to help everybody that comes in, and I try to leave the kind of the lesson tee to the last 5 minutes of any fitting, because I don't want people thinking too much during the fittings, right? Thinking in golf is bad for the most part. Yeah. We tend to get in our own ways, and the hardest thing to do is stay out of our own way on the golf course. But at the same time, I want to educate the golfer on what's going on and why, so that they could take that knowledge at least and say, okay, this is what's going on, and maybe they can go see an instructor that can spend more time with them. But I want to help,
Yeah, exactly. And there's only so much time for a fitting, right? Because when you're getting fit, it's about the equipment, it's about dialing in your specs. It's tough to try and jam pack too much into there, and all of a sudden you're not focusing enough on the fitting side during that allotted time. So it's a tough dynamic. I know you guys have to work through and trying to help as much as you can. So I have a good question here. This is from John on the YouTube chat. He says, if I swing my 4 hybrid at 94 miles an hour, do I have enough swing speed to launch a T150 4-iron? He says, I can't stand the look of a hybrid and I want to go back to an iron.
So clubhead speed-wise, possibly. It really depends on some of the other swing dynamics. If you're somebody that's really aggressive and hits down on the ball and doesn't create much launch angle, 4-iron might be challenging if you're going to hit it, trying to get it coming into the greens. Possibly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all player dependent, and I think there's probably a few more data metrics that you'd probably want to see to get a full picture. What's the landing angle look like right now on that hybrid? How much spin are you getting with that hybrid? And then kind of going from there. But I'm with this person in that I have a tough time looking at a hybrid on kind of those longer clubs.
So I'll give the standard line that they give us at Titleist, which is it's easier to make the ball come down than go up. So any club that we're going to hit coming into the greens, we want to be able to do so with the intention of having that ball stop. So if you can sounds like clubhead speed wise, we're probably in really good shape. It's just whether we're going to create enough trajectory to make that, that shot coming into the greens stop the way we want to. There's other ways you can go too. I mean, if you don't like hybrids, but you do like fairway woods, hey, Tommy Fleetwood's carrying a 9 wood. There's also driving irons, right? You could potentially grab a 4 driving iron, and maybe that produces, better characteristics for you. Best thing you can do is get in with a fitter and examine these things and find out once and for all.
Yeah, that's a good point there. That's awesome. Because I'm right. I'm a player that I have that 3 kind of utility iron in my bag, and I love that at the top. For that club, you need a certain, launch and spin and swing speed to make it work as a club that you would actually hit into a green and make it stop on the green like you want on those long approach shots. So, okay, here's another good question on the YouTube feed. And again, these are coming in fast. We're not going to get to all of them. I apologize if I missed one or two. This is SP22 Cats Forever on YouTube. It says, even if you are leading pre-owned for clubs, can you speak more on how important it is to go through the fitting to understand he says L/L/L, and I think it's funny that I know exactly what that means in the golf equipment industry. LLL meaning length. Yep. Loft, lie angle, length. So can you just kind of speak on how important that is just to go through a fitting, regardless if new or used, or even just getting the maintenance on your clubs now. If you love the clubs you have right now in your bag, don't want to change anything or don't want to spend the money, but just going through getting a check on your specs in that regard.
Yeah, I mean it's incredibly important. If we're talking about irons and length, length and lie angle are linked. So if you're flushing it out of the center of the golf club all the time, then your length and lie angle are probably pretty good. If things are not quite there or it's a little inconsistent, it's probably worth checking both length and lie angle. In drivers, I want people to be able to swing as long a driver as they can hit, solidly, right? So those who get 148, 149, 150 smash factors with a driver, probably going to keep them in standard length, right? Because that'll give them the most golf club to swing. Somebody that hits it in the heel all the time, we're going to try some shorter length, see if we can't make that impact position move more toward the center. So, we cut things down here all the time. So, whether it's pre-owned or whether it's new stuff, we order things at the length that works. So definitely it's important in all the golf clubs to get fit.
Yeah, exactly. I have one quick note to make for Steven. He was asking about the used fitting peaks. He said he's not by a second swing store. So he's looking at TSR3, G430, or AI Smoke. I'm assuming for potential driver idea. But I'm going to add this. He said he's kind of asking if it's close enough to get fit for new, and then order the old one. I would just speak with an online fitter that we have. secondswing.com.
Yeah.
We have the chat button that you can find there. We've got online fitters ready to chat with you, connect with you. If you're not near one of our stores, that'd be the recommendation, because a lot of them, actually almost all of them, are fitters that have transitioned to this online capacity that we've seen do really well. So that'd be my first way, place to go. Here's another one. This is another actually fitting that you've already done here. Excuse me, Kevin. This is Bobby Sims. Said, in October you fit me for a budget bag, and I messed up going with AI smoke irons and a Ping G410 with M2 3-wood. I've since upgraded G430 10K, added smoke 3579 wood. Thank you for everything. I still need to decide which woods, and he's wondering what suggestions you have in that regard. So what do you think about that from Bobby?
So Drew, run through me again what he's got for woods right now.
So let's see. He went AI smoke irons and a Ping G410.
Okay.
Driver and thinking M2 3-wood. So I think he's going to went to a G430 10K.
Okay.
And so he wants to know which woods to keep. He's got a smoke 3579 wood. So I think maybe trying to decide which of those woods to keep, since there's a lot of them there, obviously, in the set.
Okay. So first thing we want to look at is how far your longest iron goes. Once we have that established, then we want to take the woods and see what gives you a good gap from that club to the next. So maybe you're like me and maybe you spin hybrids and high lofted woods a ton, and maybe that 9-wood doesn't get enough distance beyond, let's just say you had a 5-iron. Then you would just kind of drop the 9 and probably go to the 7, and then check the gap again between the 7 and the 5, and again between the 5 and the 3. You want to look at trajectory, make sure that we're getting good launch characteristics and good height characteristics, but we also want to make sure that we're getting good gapping. So I had a guy come in today that I had fit for a Titleist 5-wood or 5 hybrid back in March, and he said he wasn't getting the distance out of it. So he came in, we hit it, and sure enough, he was spinning it more this week. He was actually hitting it more solid, but he was getting more spin. And we took it down a degree of loft. We also identified that he was playing the ball a little bit further forward than he traditionally had. So we moved that back in his stance just a little bit, and boom, we got his distance back. So, but he had a 3 hybrid that he had been hitting the number that he'd wanted to hit the 5 hybrid. And then it was an older one, an older TaylorMade burner. And so I then had him hit that one. And it turns out that when he hits that one well now with the right ball position and everything, he actually gaps it in perfectly. So he doesn't have to get rid of it. It didn't have to be a replacement. He just needed something between. He had 5-iron, so he needed the 5-iron, and then he had the 3 hybrid. He needed something in the middle, and that 5 hybrid actually ended up being the right thing. So it's all about gapping and making sure that we don't have 2 clubs that do too much the same thing, or we leave ourselves out in no man's land.
Yeah. Bobby did follow up and said, "You're a legend. Might have to come by soon and make the choices." So,
please
I
do.
agree.
I'll help you out.
I agree with the legend part. Bobby's a legend for saying that you're a legend, I think so.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a great question. I'm going to get to this one. Make sure we do, because it's already 1:40 Central Time, so we don't have a ton of time left, and I want to make sure we get to this one. This is a great one. Robert asked, "What would be a pet peeve that you have during a fitting that a customer should avoid doing to not get the fitter upset?" So obviously not. I don't want you to call it anything too specific or name any names, but I guess that's just I'm curious about that one for yourself. Is there a pet peeve during a fitting that maybe makes it more difficult for you to complete a fitting with a player?
No. Look, we want to have a good running conversation. We want to be able to, I'm going to ask a lot of questions in any fitting, and I want the person to give me answers. I suppose if it's all talking and no swinging, it can get we can run short on time. I haven't really had anything that drove me crazy other than sometimes parents on junior fittings. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm pretty easy to get along with.
So one I thought of, and I've talked to some fitters who have said this, and I'll maybe get your take on it. Not trying to force this to be your answer to this question, but a couple fitters have said that they've had experiences with players that don't believe the TrackMan numbers. Do you ever get that where you have someone in that's you maybe ask them in a driver fitting, how far do you hit your driver, and they say 270, and then they just can't get near 270 in the kind of the warm up swings.
So, look, there's indoors versus outdoors. So, I'm willing to take somebody at their word, and if the numbers aren't quite what they expect to see, we're still doing an apples to apples comparison. So if they're hitting their driver X and we hit new driver Y, then I can say, well, look, you picked up 17 yards in here. That's going to translate to 17 yards out on the golf course.
Yeah, that's fair.
So just try to diffuse it that way. I mean, I trust TrackMan pretty implicitly. I struggle with it a little bit with wedges, just because I see better numbers on the golf course than I do in here. But we're also set at 0. We're at sea level and 77 degrees. So it is possible that, you're playing in 90-degree temperatures, the ball might go just a little bit further. Yeah. Or if you're at elevation, the ball should go further. So there are some variables.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that. You're patient and understanding. You're going to get more fittings now because of that, Kevin. So, okay, I'm going to go with 2 more questions here. We've got a couple good ones here in the YouTube chat, and then we'll wrap up. And obviously, anybody watching right now, if you have a question for Kevin, you can leave it in the comment section below as well, and we'll send them to Kevin. We'll get his answers. He loves doing that type of stuff. This is Jaywalking for Life. That's a pretty good YouTube username. Says, what cool. shaft most fits and has specs to match a Graphite Design Tour AD IZ family? What brands besides Graphite Design have a shaft with that profile? So I think he's looking for something similar to a Graphite Design Tour AD IZ.
Okay, high launch, low spin. So Ventus Red, Ventus TR Red, Ventus Plus Red. All those are going to be the higher launching, lower spinning shafts. I've found the Denali Red from Project X to be a good high launch and low spin shaft. I've found the Autoflex to be a good high launch and low spin shaft. Haven't got any experience with it yet, but I'm expecting the Diamana Red to fall into that category as well. Yeah. Um, if you're looking for, a little less on the expensive side, that Denali is going to be a really good one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me
I remember
peruse
when
my
you were in
shaft line
town.
here.
You were in town. We did a lot of testing in those comparison videos, and Denali Red was your kind of shaft of choice for a lot of those, at least the driver ones we did. So you had some pretty good feedback on at least that Denali Red model.
Yeah, it's great. It's 50 gram, 60 gram. You got a couple options there, and I've found it to be a good responsive shaft that holds up under what you want to give it, and spin numbers were really good. So pretty much anything with a red in it's probably going to be that.
Sounds like that's kind of the
profile.
trend here. Yeah. It's kind of nice that
as
we
far
get
as I know,
similar color coding there across the industry for at least
does
shafts.
help. Yeah, a little bit of consistency is nice. I think for the IZ, I think that's their highest launching, lowest spinning of their group. So,
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to keep up sometimes with Graphite Design because they've got all this
dude,
long
they have
list of
so
shafts
many
they keep
different
adding to it.
models,
Yeah.
and so many of them have very, very similar profiles with, slightly different butt stiffnesses and tip stiffnesses and midsection stiffnesses. So, man, it is hard to keep track of, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Last one here from Andrew Elliott on YouTube, and then of course we'll. This has been awesome, by the way, Kevin. This has been great. A lot of golfers getting some answers to their questions. A lot of people watching and listening that are, maybe it's a similar question they had. They're good. I mean, this is just a load of information in one session, so this is great. Andrew, this is a pretty kind of specific question, but I think it's pretty good and probably a common problem you have in fittings. So he said he's playing a TSR2 9-degree driver, Tenside Blue 55 gram shaft, and spinning it sometimes up to 4,500 RPM with a fade, but not a slice. So, kind of a slight fade, but that's a lot of spin, right, for a driver.
It is a lot of spin.
He says his attack angle is slightly up, path is slightly out to in. What can I do to lower spin?
Okay. First thing I'm going to look at is going to be impact location. Hopefully you can get to someplace that's got TrackMan and we can see what that impact location is, because anything that is caught to the heel side of the vertical center line on the golf club is going to tend to spin more. Anything that is caught below the horizontal center line on the golf club is going to tend to spin more. So shaft could factor into that, going to a heavier weight, slightly different profile could potentially help to bring some spin down, but I don't think we're going to see go from 4,000s down to that 24 or 2,500 we're really looking for. So my sense is, let's look at angle of attack. No, you said it hits up on it, so I guess we don't have to worry about angle of attack. I would look very closely at impact location, because that's going to be the big one. If if you leave the face open on an outside to in path, we're going to see spin creep up. But it's usually when we get those heel strikes or the low strikes, or worse, the low heel strikes, that we really see that spin come up. So let's look at that.
He just added that his miss is low on the face usually. So that kind of answers at least some of the question there. That's that quadrant of death you talk about. We're talking about the club face here. There's that center line lower than the equator, so to speak, right, is going to have more spin, and then also heel side is going to have more spin. And if you hit that quadrant, that's the maximum. You're kind of maximizing the spin on that face, which is in this case a bad thing. So that's kind of the summary of that. Yeah. I think one other thing too, maybe to touch on, would be like length of shaft, because I know that can sometimes help with the contact being made there too, and or the hosel adjustments on that Titleist TSR2 as well.
I will admit that probably in 80% of the fittings where I go shorter, people still continue to hit it in the heel.
Really?
It's usually a move in the golf swing. People get the shaft line standing up, and that golf club then is outside the golf ball. And so there's tend to be a lot of heel strikes that way. Either that, or they disconnect slightly on the way in, right, and they end up in the heel. So sometimes I will just say, look, You caught the shorter one in the heel, you caught the longer one in the heel. Let's start with the longer one, see if we can make some changes, and see if we can get it going. And if we have to cut it down after the fact, we can do that.
No, noted. Well, yeah, for Andrew's sake, it looks like potentially testing out a couple different shafts, seeing what they can do to optimize that impact location is going to be the winning formula here to improve that spin rate. But it's 250 your time, 150 our time, Kevin. So with that said, I think we'll start to wrap here. We got another endorsement here from Jaywalking, who said, "Everyone give a thumbs up to this video. Great info. For for all of us golf nerds, we need more of this Q&A. So maybe we'll have to schedule more of these, Kevin. The people seem to like it today, so appreciate.
I'd love to do it. This is fun for me, and I get to exercise my brain a little bit, and it's good. And I get to see your face too. So
yeah, well, that's probably the lowest of the the perks to this whole thing. But it was also fun before we went live to see you and kind of the team there getting your stuff set up there in the bay, get the tee shot behind you all ready to go. So
shout out to David Coe, who runs all the IT stuff around here, along with fitting and fitting manager and doing all the construction and everything else. So
yeah, give a quick shout out to David. He's that was a big help that he provided here as well before we started. So if you have a question that we didn't get to, drop it in the comments below. Join the stream every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. We'll have Kevin back on soon. We've got some special guests lined up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. Go schedule a fitting with Kevin if you're in the Columbia, Maryland location. Otherwise, Kevin, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck during the golf season as well in your competitive events. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys all next time.